Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor, and we begin tonight with a disturbing but important blockbuster report from the great journalists at Project Veritas. This is out of a private school in Chicago. Watch this.
They're just like passing around dildos, butt plugs. The kids are just playing with them. They're like, how does this butt plug work? How does this work? That's a really cool part of my job.
Unbelievable. Joining us now is the founder of Project Veritas and the leader of that great legion of independent journalists exposing stories like this. My friend and former colleague under Andrew Breitbart, James O'Keefe. James, you've done it again. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Larry. Great to be with you.
Tell me who this person is and tell me about this school that he works for.
This is a guy named Joe Bruno, who's the dean, the head of the Francis Private School, a very prestigious progressive school in Highland Park, which is a neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. We met him at the National Association of Independent Schools conference in Texas, built a relationship with him, and got him to say these horrible things about giving out butt plugs, he calls them, and sex toys to 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds. Very shocking. It's actually a misdemeanor in Illinois to even show that stuff to underage people. This is the dean. This is not the teacher. This is the head of the whole school, Larry, and it's a shocking and sensational report.
Yeah, let's watch a little bit more video here. Let's go to cut 2 here.
During Pride, we do a Pride Week every year, and I had our LGBTQ plus health center come in. They were passing around butt plugs and dildos to my students, talking about queer sex, using lube versus using spit.
Who was this?
This is an LGBTQ plus health center came in to talk to my high school students.
Nice.
They're just passing around dildos, butt plugs. The kids are just playing with them. They're looking at them.
In the school?
In a classroom.
Wow.
Yeah. While I'm sitting there.
James, if I drove up to a bunch of underage teenagers hanging out at a park and I handed out sex toys and had conversations like this with them, I'd be a felon. I would end up on a sex crimes list here. How do they possibly get away with this?
That's a great point. I mean, it's a separation of it's a difference in prosecutorial discretion, because if I did this, if I was handing out butt plugs to 14-year-old girls, I would be arrested by the FBI. Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
I would want you arrested, James. Let's just be clear on this.
But this is the point. I mean, and rightfully so, as would you. But some people are immune from prosecution. This is a criminal act, and this guy is the head of the school. So we have a crisis now. Some breaking news. I don't have it in front of me, but the principal of the school has responded twice. Once prior to this report coming out, warning people about
in fact, hold up, James. We have his first response, so I'm looking forward to your breaking news. Let's go ahead and put that note up there. In the first response, he called your organization a group that undermines and manipulates diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, and then went on to tell the parents that they were deeply upset, not about the contents of this report, not about the sex toys being introduced to 14-year-olds in the classroom. He was upset that you and Project Veritas confronted the teacher on camera last night. That's what upsets the principal, James?
Yeah, and we have a new reaction from this is the principal, Dan Frank of the school. And what Frank says, I'm going to paraphrase it here. It's quite a long letter to the community saying, quote, subject was filmed without his knowledge or permission while describing one example of our inclusive, affirming approach to education. Please know the video contains descriptive language. If you choose to view it, we ask you not to share it because it will add to its viral power. So it appears they're standing by this guy, at least for now. But Larry, one thing we've learned about these reports inside schools is that there's such a threshold of outrage and a groundswell from parents that we don't know if that's going to happen. We have to figure out if society is going to stand behind this. And I don't think they usually will. This is a fringe of people who believe in doing this activity.
I hope that's right. Gentlemen, do we have that Ben Shapiro tweet about this? Because our old colleague at Breitbart, James, Ben Shapiro, made a really important observation on this. Do we have that, guys? Yeah. The word grooming does not mean simply preparing a child for sexual predation by an adult. It can also mean an attempt to indoctrinate children into a perverse worldview. An enormous number of schools, both public and private, are interested in precisely that sort of grooming. Imagine if you're a student in that classroom, James, and you were raised with a pretty strict and formal upbringing that is appropriate to a 14-year-old. And this is the first time anything like this has introduced you in this context. That can be jarring and frankly damaging to one's psychology, I would think.
Traumatizing. That's why it's a Class A misdemeanor in Illinois to do this. It's a criminal act. And then we have to decide what country. Do we want to live in a country where laws apply to certain people and other people depending upon their political view? That's a breakdown of the rule of law. This is an unbelievably transcendental story, Larry. We have my interview with him outside the school has just come out moments ago. I hope you play it in the next block, but it's pretty amazing. He backs up for me, Larry. He runs away. They always run. And this is right after the children let out of school. I spoke to him, Bruno, and he ran away from me. And he's a very unusually looking man. He kind of looks a little bit like a tall version of Stalin. He bears a resemblance to outside.
Wow. Yeah, well, let's go. I want to watch a little bit more of this because it's fascinating here in terms of what the principal now says. This is the dean of students at this private school, which, by the way, I understand is $40,000 a year tuition. According to the principal, he's just talking about one incident, one example of inclusion in the school. Here, watch this.
And we had a drag queen come in, pass out cookies and brownies and do photos.
It's so amazing. And everybody's cool with that, like the butt plugs and the dildos. Nobody complains.
No.
I mean, if the parents found out, would they?
No. It's queer sex.
Wow. That's the nonchalance of that is actually incredibly disturbing. I don't feel like I'm a prude, James, but I don't want that guy talking to my kids about stuff like this.
Yeah, they should embrace. If this is what they're going to embrace, then just say it publicly. Veritas got this guy in a private, what they would call a private moment at the conference. But now, if the principal stands behind this, then stand behind it. Just say it out loud. And that's the dilemma that they're in, right? They're caught on tape saying this thing. What are they going to say? It's fake. It's edited. Well, they tried that. But is this what you believe or not? This is what Veritas does. We catch them on tape. There's no denying it. And now the question is, will they stand behind the guy? It appears, at least for the moment, they are.
Wow. And you're right. There's no selective editing. There's no chance that they can make that claim now. So it's up to them whether they own it or not. Did you have a tip on this, by the way, James? Did you have any idea or sort of a hunch that you would get this kind of content from him?
Yeah, we get tipped off. Veritas tips at protonmail.com. I did meet with a source who told me about a group of people, this guy included, and where they were meeting. So I was able to get a kind of an idea of where to focus my lens and where to go at this conference. Indeed. So Veritas tips at protonmail.com. If someone does have a tip, they can tip us off.
And more importantly, in our final minute here, James, I know how important it is for you to get other journalists who are interested in this kind of work to join your team. How can they do that?
Right behind me under my head, it says projectveritas.com/brave. You can go to that URL. You can apply to be a journalist. We're always hiring people to be part of the Project Veritas dream team, I call it, the undercover journalism squad, the investigative reporters it's not for everyone, not for the faint of heart. But we're taking applications, and we look to hear from you.
Yeah, and imagine if the legacy journalism outlets even tried a small percentage of the kind of work that you're doing at Project Veritas. We could actually, well, you know what? Let them continue down their path. It makes more opportunities for Project Veritas, James. Always good to call you, my friend. Thank you, James. Great work as always. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.